Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, sports fans of all ages, this is Todd Lights, public address announcer for the Los Angeles Dodgers. And now, leading off Facebook Live Friday nights at 8 p.m., number 19, Chris Pomey, the host of 30 Minutes Live with CDP. Hey fans, it's a weekly sports talk show talking about the MLB, the NBA, the NHL, the NFL, and of course the Philadelphia Eagles. Tune in. You won't regret it.
Hey everybody, it's your bro CDP here on this Friday night, 30 Minutes Live with CDP podcast, my third in 3 nights. I'm looking forward to tonight's show. I have my guest is Aaron Sanders, the longtime play-by-play voice of the Windsor Express of the NBL, and I'm looking forward to talking to Aaron about his career and about the NBL of Canada, which is an 8-team pro basketball league here in Canada and Ontario. So just give me a couple minutes and I will bring Aaron on. Just 1 second. And I'm just going to put on the website too. If you guys want to check out NBLcanada.ca, that's their official website as well. So give me 1 second, guys. And I'm going to bring Aaron on, and I'm looking forward to talking to him. Oh, by the way, that was Todd Lights, the public address announcer for the Los Angeles Dodgers, who was kind enough to do a shout-out promo for my podcast as well. So 1 second, I'm going to bring Aaron Sanders on from the Windsor Express. Hey, Aaron, how you doing, buddy?
How you doing, Chris? And how are we going to top that intro from Todd Lights, the PA announcer of the Los Angeles Dodgers? Nonetheless, one of my favorite MLB teams, and it's nice to be here tonight.
No problem. I do have Willie McGinnis, and I have a few others that have done promos for me, so I like to switch them up every podcast.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. I go not way back, but one of my favorite PA announcers was from the Dodgers. He used to PA announce in the 60s and 70s. His name was John Ramsey, believe it or not. He did the PA for the LA Kings when they started off in the Fabulous Forum, the LA Lakers, and then, of course, the LA Dodgers. So it's pretty good that you got somebody representing the Dodger Blues doing something like that.
Well, I'm hoping one day I can get John Mason, the Pistons PA guy, to do one for me, because Mason's one of my favorite guys for the Pistons, especially the saying Detroit basketball.
He's been doing that for 20 years. That would be nice.
Yeah, actually, the one guy for the Lakers right now, Lawrence Tanter, I think's his name. He's been doing it since 1982.
That's right. Phil replaced by the name of Larry McKay. He's the PA announcer for your Los Angeles Lakers. Very fine at what he does. And he also used to do the DJing for a jazz station back in the...
Yes. I was going to say, everybody focuses on the TV guys and the radio guys, but you know what? The PA guys don't get enough respect, in my opinion, because they are the voice of the franchise in the arena.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people get the directions as to who scored a basket, who scored a goal, who's on the power play, and who's batting first, batting second, batting third. I mean, they're the main voice, and they're basically steering the audience into a direction as to where the game is going to. And I've been doing that for a number of years too, so I know how it is behind that mic.
Yeah,
we're going behind another mic too.
Definitely. And I'm wearing my Pistons hat tonight. And I got to talk to you about that 2005 Spurs team, man. The Pistons had them. They had them. And Rasheed Wallace led up on big shot Robert Ory. And we lost that game in Game 5. And then we won Game 6. And then Game 7, we lost in San Antonio. But I really think the Pistons, that Game 5 loss, that was a dagger right there, losing that game in overtime to the Spurs.
I'll tell you, those last 3 games of the finals was like pretty much a teeter-totter match, because I think the first 4 games, they were so lopsided, won by the home team, I think. I know about this because it was my last NBA finals I watched while living in San Antonio at the time. So it was like a battle of the family per se. I think I was the only one that was going for the Spurs, and my mom and dad's side, they were going for the Pistons too. So imagine rubbing it into your family's face when you hear that final buzzer go off and seeing the Spurs hoist the championship trophy in Game 7. Yeah. One of the finest finals. And I think it was one of the last best finals we have seen until, let's say, and I hate to say this, LeBron James joining Miami or going back to Cleveland or so on and so forth, but that's a topic for later on.
Yeah. Well, the Pistons have been in a rebuild since 2010. So, but I do finally like what they have. They got Troy Weaver as general manager from Oklahoma City. They brought in Dwayne Casey from the Raptors, who's great at working with young players. And I like Kalian Hayes, who they drafted, Isaiah Stewart, and they got Jeremy Grant, who's the nephew of Horace Grant, and the Pistons and Sake. I think it's Sake Bay.
Sadiq Bey, I believe.
Sadiq Bey, yes. Sorry, I still got to work on pronouncing names. That's something I got to ask you about that too, about name pronouncing, because sometimes these names you got to really try to work on getting them right, because you don't want them to get them wrong on broadcast.
It doesn't matter how many times you pronounce them. You can pronounce them 10 times or 100 times. It's best that, everybody does their homework, make sure they double check. And you know what? It's a good skill, believe it or not. And by the way, as far as Dwayne Casey is concerned, I'm glad that the Pistons was able to sign him on for 3 more years, because he's a very underrated coach in the NBA. I mean, he did a terrific job with the Raptors. I don't care what anyone says, because I think it was the start of the Raptors championship run, even though they let him go for Nick Nurse. But we knew that it was a start of something for the Toronto Raptors, and he was basically the footprint. Everything, helped them get on their way for their title in 19.
Well, if they had gotten Kawhi Leonard and some of these guys when Casey was there, I think they would have won a championship. Nothing against Nick Nurse, but I really think if they had gotten Kawhi Leonard when Casey was there, I think the Raptors still probably would have won a championship with Dwayne Casey.
They could have been a dynasty. They could have won 3 straight, if you ask me.
Unfortunately, they won their one, and then last year they had their second round. They fought like crazy in the second round and came up short, and then this year it's just been a disaster. Do you think it's because of the talent, or do you think not being at home for over a year playing on the road has been a factor in their decline?
Well, it's a mixture of both, I believe, because number one, last season, the final half of last year, they had to play in a bubble. So they were already playing in Florida, and things were just off kilter for them. And number two, as far as the talent is concerned, it's there, but I don't know if the chemistry is pretty much there anymore. I mean, we've heard a whole lot of speculation and drama, like for Pascal Siakam at the beginning of this season. It's like, what's going on with that? And then I was surprised to check out their record about a month or two ago. It's like, wait a minute, this was pretty much the same team from the bubble last year that made it up to the second round until their bubble burst. So it's a matter of both of them. And hopefully in 21-22, they'll be back at the Scotia Bank Arena. We're saying Air Canada Center. I forgot to change their name.
Yeah, well, I think the Pistons won't have a problem. They're going to stay in that arena too, Little Caesars Arena. I really wish they had stayed at the Palace, because to me, that Palace, I've been there. It was a beautiful arena, and that's where all the Pistons' success was, in that arena. And it was still in really good shape, but they tore it down, and it was like, it wasn't a dump when they demolished it either.
No, I remember watching the demolition live on TV, waking up really like around 7:30, 8 a.m. It's like, it opened in 1988. And you look on the outside and the interior of the building, it's like one of these new arenas. Like, for example, what the Hornets have, or what the Pistons have, and what the Lakers have. It is still top notch. But they said they wanted to go back to Metro Detroit, something that they haven't done since they played in the Cobo Arena in 78.
Yeah, in the 70s, yeah.
Yeah. But times change, and you got to move into the arenas. Maybe there's more luxurious suites and so on and so forth. But I've heard the Little Caesars Arena is amazing too. But it's a crying shame I wasn't able to go down to the Palace when it was still up.
Yeah, I did. That time I went, I saw a Red Wing game at the Julius Arena in the afternoon, and then my cousins in Taylor, Michigan, took me to see the Pistons and Bulls. So I got to two sporting events in a matter of 5 hours, which was kind of cool.
So you were in Hockey Town, and then you saw the Pistons play.
Yeah. Yeah, and the Pistons were still pretty good in 2008. It was about 2010 they started going down, and they just gone through coach and general manager, and and then they've given big money contracts out to players that haven't panned out. So I like the way they're finally doing it now. The owners letting Troy Weaver run the basketball operations, and Dwayne Casey's doing all the coaching, and the owners just kind of staying out of the spotlight. And I think that's why the Pistons in the past were successful, because the late Bill Davison would hire Jack McCloskey, Chuck Daly, etc., to look after the franchise. He would pay the contract and all that, but these guys would run the franchise for him.
Absolutely. Give it 2 or 3 years, the Pistons will be back in the playoffs, something they haven't done in a few years.
I'm really hoping next year. I might be a little optimistic, but I'm hoping next year maybe they might be able to get in with the development. Look at the New York Knicks, one of the biggest surprise teams. I am so happy the Knicks have made the playoffs for the first time since 2013. I'm not a Knicks fan, but they are the biggest market in the NBA as far as I'm concerned, and it would be good for the league if the Knicks were a strong team again.
And did they suffer since 2013? I remember that last series, and I think they were playing against the Celtics in one of their rounds, and that series reminded me of the 90s again. It's like you had the Bulls and the Knicks in the 90s, and then you had like the Bulls and the Heat, or the Heat and the Knicks with Lonzo and Grandmama Larry Johnson. But, man, that series was awesome. And, I mean, we were so close to having a little bit of fisticuffs in one of those games because one team sort of acted cocky, but that's the one thing I miss about the NBA. And if the Knicks are able to provide that sort of firepower, who knows? They could be an upset team, and they might make it in the second round. But it depends on the play-ins and the playoffs, right?
Yeah, I would not want to play the Knicks if they're the number 5 seed. I was going to say, I don't know if you've ever been to Madison Square Garden. I was lucky enough to go, and it's an amazing arena. And I'll tell you, if the Knicks keep winning and they can have capacity crowds in there, those fans will go crazy because, like I said, the Knicks haven't won a championship since 1973, I believe.
73. They did it over the Lakers, and it's quite interesting, too, because a year before that, Lakers beat them in 5 games, 4 games to 1, their first title in L.A., and the Knicks returned the favor in 5 games as well, which a lot of people remember is Will Chamberlain's last season, the last game. But nonetheless, I mean, how can you go wrong with the 70s Knicks? Willis Reed, Dave DeBusschere,
Phil Jackson.
Phil Jackson when he was playing. He was he played more, he had more time on the floor than he played on the 1970s team too. And I was just watching their championship game in 1973, and there was a process to claiming that film too. I suggest everybody watch it because, my goodness, it has been lost for more than 40 years. And then funny enough, on the 40th anniversary, they got the tape, or should I say they got the cartridge, because it was under cartridge vision. Nobody knows what it is anymore. So it's hard for them to get, the system to play it and whatnot. But when I saw that, it's like, man, the running gun Knicks, I mean, you could talk about the Celtics and the Lakers of the 80s and the Bulls of the 90s, but they were a well-oiled machine in the 70s. And hopefully we see some of that when they're off to the playoffs.
Getting Derrick Rose from the Pistons was a good move. And I think what they did to stabilize that franchise, the owner finally hired a basketball guy to run the team, and then they hired Tom Thibodeau, the former Chicago Bulls coach, and I think he's done an outstanding job with that Knicks team this year.
Well, it makes sense too, and I keep on forgetting Tom Thibodeau is the coach for the Knicks, because I remember he was all over the place, I think, when he got let go by the Bulls. If you ask me, I thought it was not a good decision for the Bulls to let him go, but guess which team is paying the price now, and guess which team is out for the glory.
And that's another franchise that's struggled since 1998. They've had maybe a couple of good years, and Derrick Rose's MVP season there in 2011, but the Bulls really have not been an NBA contender since their last championship in 1998, which is hard to believe.
I have a question. Have you ever watched the Last Dance documentary?
Yes, I did. I watched it last year, and they weren't too flattering to the bad boy Pistons, but you know what? They had to learn the hard way from the bad boys. The bad boys helped them in a way. That's to me, that's what it was. And to me, they should have showed a little more respect to the bad boys, because the Pistons really should have won 3 in a row before the Bulls did. Because if you watch the '88 NBA Finals, that phantom call on Bill Laimbeer in Game 6 or 7 cost the Pistons the championship, as far as I'm concerned. I still haven't gotten over that '88 NBA Finals loss to the Lakers in 7 games.
Yeah, it was right down to the wire, too. Laimbeer hit a 3 from the other side, and then I think Magic threw a baseball past AC Green, and that was the coup de grace right there. And keep in mind, Isaiah was playing on a bum ankle, and he was still putting up big numbers. Yeah,
the one quarter, he had 25 points in the third quarter on I think he sprained his ankle, a really bad sprain, and I don't know how he did it. I really don't.
It's a mystery because a twisted ankle is like one of the most common injuries in basketball and just in general. It's like you could just be walking or trip and just curb your ankle like that. And I've done it a number of times, and trust me, it's no picnic in the park. But, it's one of those it's going to happen type of things, and it's up to you to have the willpower to either go out there or keep on playing or not, or cool it down.
Definitely. I got a bit of a little video clip of you. Is it okay if I just play a couple minutes of it?
You have my okay. Thumbs up.
Okay, no problem. Just give me 1 second. I'm still learning all this technology on here. Give me 1 second. I'm just going to put it on. It's just your demo.
Here in the Rose City.
Can you hear it okay?
Oh, I hear it perfectly. Smooth as caramel.
Against the Windsor Express, 1 and 2. Live from the WFCU Center, good evening. This is Aaron Sanders with JP, Justin Prince. I know there has to be some adjustments made from the Windsor Express after they lost to the Sudbury 5 this past Saturday night, 120 to 116. Let's quickly talk about that game because there were not only there were some key return players, but there were some key factors too that led to that loss. And they've been very busy as far as transactions are concerned here today. A couple of players returning to the roster, a couple of players labeled as scratches put on the IR list. What more can you tell us about that? Anderson catch and shoot three, goes off the front. Nix pokes it over to Fuller. Second chance, it goes. And it misses the 2. But the 5 with the ball again. Dexter Williams Jr., second chance. It goes. He'll go to the line for the and one. Oh, baby, what a play from Williams Jr. Jones outside. Brown for 3. And it's short. And Gaines going coast to coast, finding Boone, and Gaines throws it down. And A.J. Gaines putting on a spectacle tonight as he has 21. Jones down to the corner, 7 on the shot clock. Jones moving with 3. Brown at the shot clock buzzer. Good! And Anderson comes out of there. Here's Jones. Anderson. Mojo for the tie. Put her there! 3 minutes, 22 seconds remaining here in the third. The inbounds pass goes into Lewis the third. Anderson almost took it away. Holder for 3. Yes!
And again, perimeter defense. Wide open shot once more, and you can't afford to leave a man like that open.
Nix over to Bowler for 3.
Great extra pass and a great swish from Bowling.
Land flustered by Nix, finds Holder. He does it again. J.R. Holder.
Anyways, I just wanted to share a little bit of your work on here with my audience, Aaron.
Oh, thank you very much. And I want to give credit to St. Clair College, who helped produce the Windsor Express games. And hopefully when the season gets up and running again, whenever that will be, it will be their 3rd season. And they are great people to work with, the Windsor Express. I have a tremendous amount of respect for them and the NBLC for giving me the opportunity to do this for 6 years and for 141 games, I do believe. It's a great roller coaster, I'll tell you this, because in the world of sports, you're going to have the roller coasters. You're going to have the ups and downs, and who knows, you might have all that during the game, let alone a series or a championship. And I've been thrilled to be a part of this, and hopefully we have a whole lot more action to go as the weeks, months, and years go on.
I was going to say, I'm still new to your work, but I just hearing how you do your broadcast, how professional you are, how good you sound. It's just going to be a matter of time before you're in the NBA in professional sports. Because to me, when you hear somebody right away, you know if that person has it or not. And I personally think it's just a matter of time before I think somebody will be calling at your door, knocking on your door.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. And I keep on saying the same thing every time. I try my best. I do my best. And just, whatever opportunities comes around, it's like, I'm not going to say no to it because you never know what's going to lead you. And the fact that we have a basketball team here in the Rose City, how am I going to say no to that? That's my first love.
I was gonna say, and I was able to go to one game in 2016. My cousins in London took me to a Lightning Express game, and I was actually impressed with the league back then in 2016. So, yeah, I was gonna say, I think honestly, I think the leagues both the CEBL and the NBL are great. And I was going to say, do you think it's feasible one day they could just all merge into one league and just have an OHL, the Ontario Hockey League, just have a basketball in Ontario like the OHL? Or do you think you'll never see both of these leagues emerging together?
I firmly believe that these two can coexist, and you never know whether if they're going to merge or not, because here's the thing. The way I see it, for anybody that is a fan of basketball, especially either in my region or in Canada, I see it as a great opportunity to see basketball all year around. NBLC working the winter and spring seasons, and the CEBL working the late spring, early summer, seasons too. So it's a rare opportunity to have basketball come together in just one big year, but you never can tell. You never can tell. There are two great products here in Canada, and hopefully everything, goes up from here. And who knows, maybe in the future we may be talking about this question again, and we may have an answer.
Yeah, because I said I like both leagues. I think it's very good basketball, and like I said, I'd like to go to another NBL game as well. My friend Karen, who lives in London, by the way, she's a London Lightning season ticket holder. She loves the league and she loves the Lightning and that. So I just wanted to give her a shout out too, because she's a huge basketball fan, Raptors fan, and then London Lightning fan. So yeah, definitely. Hopefully the league will start up in November, and we'll just keep our fingers crossed. I think they were looking at November, right?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, the league, they're taking this very seriously, and they take direction from the provincial health authorities as it relates to the pandemic and the ability to proceed with the mass gathering. So once they get the approval, the league will be ready to move on with it. So at the moment, I mean, it would be nice to see it come back in November and December, but then again, it's all to be determined as how this pandemic is going to go along. And incidentally, as far as the season ticket holder is concerned over for the London Lightning and Budweiser Gardens, you went to a game where it has one of the best rivalries in NBLC history, the 401 rivalry. And on top of that, we see NBL players, they strike it rich in the CEBL too, and those players too will return the favor. So you're seeing all these players, you're seeing all this great talent. And again, it goes back to seeing basketball for the entire year, or playing it for the entire year too. I mean, they thrive for competition. They thrive to be the best that they could be, and they thrive to win championships and, be on the upper echelon.
Well, and the one team, Fraser Valley Bandits, I believe, they had Kyle Julius, the head coach from that used to be with London, and Xavier Moon, I guess. He was he with Edmonton or was he with Fraser Valley? I'm just trying to remember.
I believe he was with Edmonton, and for Kyle Julius, I mean, he was a dynamic coach for the London Lightning. I covered their games from 2016 to 2018, so my first 2 years in the league, well, first 3 years, I should say. So I flip-flopped from Windsor to London to do all their home games too.
Okay, I did not know that. Okay,
absolutely, it was tremendous to be on the road and go from Budweiser Gardens to the WFCU Center, and then I became exclusive to the Windsor Express after the 2017-2018 season. And incidentally, 3 years ago today was my last game I did with the London Lightning. So do I miss the road trips? Yes, but it's okay because we were able to experience the 401 rivalries on both sides. It's incredible. It was incredible.
Well, I was going to say, and the two most successful teams from what I've seen are the Lightning, who are 4-time NBL champions and won it back-to-back, and Windsor did as well. Won it back-to-back as well in 14 and 15. So I was going to say, yeah. But and now you got a team in Kitchener-Waterloo too. I was going to ask you, overall, do you think the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans will succeed in that market?
Well, they will. They will. The last full season they went into a big time series against the St. John's Edge, who eventually went to the finals that year. And they had a great amount of talent. They have a good coach in Cavell Johnson, who played with the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans and the NBLC too. So he knows a thing or two about the league, what pieces they need to put together. And just the whole organization as a whole, they've been working very hard to get the community involved and so on and so forth. School day games, very intense competition. And I'll tell you, they would usually give Windsor, Sudbury, and London over in the Central Division a run for their money too. So don't count any of these teams out, especially the KW Titans, because I'll tell you this, in a year or two, we might see them in the Central Division finals once again, because they're a terrific team. They've been a terrific team since the start back in 2016-17.
Yeah, because it would be good to build the rivalry up with London and then maybe eventually with Windsor as well, because rivalries, a league is only as strong as its rivalries are, is in my opinion.
Not to mention the parity with that too.
Yes, definitely. So, okay, I'm going to ask you some questions. Are you okay time-wise?
Oh, I'm perfect.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, like I said, I'm off until Sunday night. So, yeah, this is great that you came on today. I really appreciate it. And like I said, there's still a lot about the NBL I'd like to learn and my audience as well. So I like to try to promote my guests, what they do on here as well.
And I'll do the best that I can to give you all that info, and to everybody,
Okay.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No problem. Thank you for coming on. All right. My first question for you. Can you just tell my audience just a little bit about yourself? Where did you go to school, and when did you know you want to pursue a career in broadcasting? And how much of an adjustment was it coming from the United States over to Ontario?
Well, first off, for everybody out there, I was born in Minot, North Dakota in 1995. So I'm on the doorsteps of being 26 years old. And I first got into basketball when I was 3 years old. Thank you to my father in heaven right now, because we got into basketball when Michael Jordan was on his way out. Tim Duncan, Kevin Garnett, Kobe Bryant, and Shaq, they were about to take the scene. And, you know, I played a couple of, I think it was rec league teams in the YMCA. And then we moved to San Antonio in 1999. So you could see why I'm bleeding silver and black, even though I'm wearing blue and pink, but that's neither here nor there. But no, I saw the Spurs play at the Alamo Dome, and that's a big arena, too cavernous for them. And then that's where I found my love for basketball. And I didn't get fully into basketball till the 02-03 season when they won their second NBA championship. I could write a book about my experience, you know, watching the Spurs and seeing how they were able to put that chemistry together with the championship. But it was my first full season and experience with the Spurs. And believe it or not, there were some late night games where I would just stay past my bedtime. Don't tell my mom that I would just quietly, you know, do play-by-play. And I figured it's like, well, if I don't make it to the NBA, then I could just make it behind the mic. So I entertained that idea when I was a kid, but most importantly, I just wanted to play basketball for my elementary school and for my high school. Did it in 8th grade, was the second last person to get cut from the tryouts in 9th grade, and I didn't entertain the broadcasting idea until Assumption High School over here in Windsor, about the 10th, 11th grade, where I started doing morning announcements. And my religion teacher at the time, Mrs. Grepka, thank you, Lord, for that, for her, fantastic lady. She said, you got a voice for broadcasting. So I went with it, and I applied at St. Clair College, and they said, Aaron, welcome to St. Clair College. Welcome to the Mediaplex. And it was quite interesting that in 2013, I got into college, spent 2 years in their journalism program, and graduated there in 2015. And then I went back for their media convergence program, which was basically the first 2 years of journalism, but with a bigger, interesting challenge. You know, take on the projects that you would usually see like on CTV or CBC with their big stories. So we did that. I did that. I graduated from there. And funny enough, the same year of media convergence was my first year broadcasting for the Windsor Express. I started off as their halftime and post-game co-host, along with my broadcast partner, JP Justin Prince. And, you know, the transition from what I did up to now, you know, it was a very interesting experience, because I know at the beginning, you got to start at the bottom and work your way up to show people that you show your worth, show your character, show that you're willing to learn, willing to be a part of experience, whether if you're a camera guy or just getting the stats at the end of the half. You know, that transition was good for me, because I often told people, it's like, one day I'm going to be in this chair and I'm going to be behind the mic. So I didn't get the full-time opportunity to do play-by-play until the 2017-2018 season. But now to this day, with the Express, I pretty much do host the pregame show, halftime, postgame show, and play-by-play on select games.
Wow. You know what? And somebody else was telling me this too. The more you can do, the more useful, like the more you can do, the more you add to your skill sets and the more valuable you will become in the future as well.
That's right. The name of the game is multitasking, especially in the world of digital media these days. I mean, you can't just do one thing and hope for the best. You got to do everything that you can that is right in front of you, because you will never know what's going to happen unless if you take on that challenge. And it's always good to take a challenge, especially if it's something outside of your comfort zone.
Oh, and like I said, I am volunteering with Rogers TV. I was doing camera work for the Guelph Storm games, which I like. I still have a lot to learn, and I started my podcast a year ago, and I love doing this. And I've decided I want to get a career in radio. I realize I still have a lot to work on, but I think I've improved in the last year, and I'm just very lucky to have guests such as yourself and my other guests come on, because a podcast is only as good as your guests are.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll tell you, it's never too late to get any experience. And plus the fact that you're going to be in a nice arena like the Sleeman Center working camera for Rogers Guelph. I mean, it's one of the best experiences that you could get right there. And plus, they won the championship a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, they did, and I was on the ice for it. They let the fans, after the championship, they let all the fans come on the ice, and it was great. And then I started with Rogers after that, and then we got shut down with COVID. So I still got a lot to learn with the camera work and stuff like that. But for me, I want to get a career in radio, and I think being with Rogers TV, hopefully when I can go back there, will be a big help, as well as continuing to do this. I do this podcast 2-3 times a week.
Which reminds me, I mean, I think this gives me more motivation to get back on my podcast soon too, because I stopped that a month ago, just to take a break from everything. And it's like I'm trying to, for my podcast, it's not sports per se. It's like pretty much everything that goes on around here. It's like I'll speak, I'll say what I think and whatnot, but at the same time, I can't do this alone. Like I'm in the process of trying to get a co-host on here, but he said once COVID calms down here in the Rose City way, bring him on there. So it's like I told everybody too, when it comes to my podcast, it's like I don't want to become the only voice, because there are times where I would do an episode and my voice would be very, very hoarse. It's like I want somebody to run with the ball too. So the fact that you're doing this and you have 5-star guests, like for example, the sports anchor for WXYZ over in
Brad Galley. Great guy.
Brad Galley, and all these cameos from Todd Lights and everybody else in the sports industry. It's like you're getting there. It's perfect.
Well, I'm fighting the odds, because everyone's like, you're almost 49 and blah, blah, blah. Where do you want to do this? And this is something I really have a passion for, and I want to keep learning it. And I love talking to people and asking questions and learning stuff.
I don't care what anyone says. You could be 49, you could be 29 or whatnot. Do something. Just do something. Go out there. If it's your passion, who's going to tell you otherwise?
And I'm very lucky too. We have the technology to do this nowadays, because even 5-10 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to do this podcast from my house without some kind of special equipment.
Right. So, and all you gotta do is just click a button and you're live, and your microphones are live too. So it's perfect.
Yes. Okay. Next question I was going to ask you. You've already answered part of it, so I'm just going to ask part of the question to you, anyways. Did you have a mentor or mentors when you were first starting out in the industry, Aaron?
I have a couple of mentors in mind. First off, let's go back to 2015. There was a guy by the name of Alejandro Demero, who was the director and creator of a local company in Windsor. He's now in Toronto, and he was doing the broadcast for the Windsor Express games, behind the camera and whatnot. And I said, I would like to work with you guys for the Windsor Express. And he said, sure, no problem. How would you like to host the halftime and post-game show? He gave me that chance, in my first chance to do broadcasting in terms of sports. And another mentor of mine is Dominic Papa, who used to do the Windsor Spitfire games with Kelso.
Yes.
So he has his local company, We Digital Productions, and he got me on We Digital back in 2017 because I know he wanted to get me for a long time. I first bumped into him as I was doing PA announcing for St. Clair Saints basketball for a number of years. So I said, you know what, why not? Because his company is live streaming St. Clair sports, live streaming St. Clair baseball in the summer collegiate leagues, and of course the Windsor Fratmen and so on and so forth. So those two have helped me. They helped me, get started in my career. And, without them, I wouldn't have a chance. And another one too, the fine folks at St. Clair College who allowed me to get into their programs, to learn more about the ropes, because they have a building called the Mediaplex in downtown. That's where their journalism, public relations, and media convergence program is at. And without their guidance, their help, and their support, I wouldn't be here. And of course, family and friends, they come into a big time factor too.
Well, you just answered my next question, but I was gonna ask you how you came across it, but you obviously put that in there. So I'm still learning too when guests answer questions to make sure I listen really carefully, because then sometimes you don't have to ask that question later on when they've already answered it. So I'm still learning a lot of skills and stuff like that, especially with the listening aspect of it too.
There are some days where I'm like that too, so it's all good. I wouldn't mind answering a question twice, if it helps people, if it helps them, give them a better understanding of it. It's like, by all means, do it, because it feels like at the end of the day, when you ask questions and when you go on with those follow-up questions, it sort of reminds me of that old show Columbo. It's like you ask all those questions and you get the details, and the question will pop up to you. When you pull an ad lib, it's like one of the best things out there.
I was going to say, do you remember your first game you did with Windsor, London, and were you very nervous? How were you, how did it, if you could just tell my audience if you remember your first game doing the live streaming games?
In the words of Sophia Petrillo from the Golden Girls, picture it, December 26, 2015, a snowy day. So we went to the WFCU Center. I was ready to go, and strangely enough, even though it was my first time going on camera for the Windsor Express, I wasn't nervous at all. The only thing I was concerned about is, will we be able to get all of our information out in the 15-minute halftime? So I remember that I was just waiting to go on camera with Justin Prince, and we had all of our notes on paper and all written out and everything, which we learned on that day because we were saying all this information on the camera for the viewers, and some of our papers fell out, but luckily we were able to ad lib and just input our own information from it, because we've been studying the whole week about this team. And mind you, it was only the first game, so how much information can you get from the preseason and so on and so forth about all those other teams? So we said at the end of the day, the microphones, they weren't working as well as they did, before that season, so we improvised and all that. And then in the post-game show, we did that too. And we were thinking, are we ever going to be on camera again? But we were. Now, for London's game, it was May 12th, 2016. And I just wanted to go there just to see what Budweiser Garden was all about. If the Knights could fill up the house, so can the London Lightning. And they did that this year that year because they were in first place. So I went with Alejandro Demero as the camera person. And they said, how would you like to be on for the halftime show? I'm wearing an Adidas tracksuit. There's no way I'm going on camera on an Adidas tracksuit. He's like, no, it's all good. It's like, it'll be audio only. I'm like, whew, if I would have known any better. But no, I went on there and I'm like, man, this broadcast crew is amazing. Chris Croucher and the crew, they were welcoming, to say the least. So I remember that game. The Express won that game with a few seconds to go. But however, London won that series in 6 games, and they went on to go to the finals that year. They lost to Halifax, but nonetheless, my first time at London was awesome, and it was a great relationship right there for the rest of those years. And just looking back at it right now, I'm like, man, this was 5 years ago. And 5 years ago, it just feels like yesterday. And if there's any chance to do London's and Windsor's games again, I would say yes in a heartbeat.
I was going to say, I know with the CBL, they've got to do with CBC Sports. Has the NBL looked at trying to get Sportsnet or TSN or even Cogeco or Rogers to do some of the games to get a little more exposure?
Well, I'm sure they're looking into it right now because, again, with this league keeps on getting better and better every year, there's going to be a time where people are going to ask, okay, when are we going to see this on TV? When are we going to get news stories? Trust me, it's a matter of time before we see the league, venture into TV, because with talent and great teams like this, eventually we're going to see them on the public airwaves.
Definitely. And live streaming is not going away by any means. I think this is the future of broadcasting too, being able to live stream.
That's right. NBLC Live has been around for a couple of years now, and it is one surefire way to watch these teams in action.
Okay. My next question for you, Aaron. Can you tell my audience and myself too a little more, because I'm still learning about your league, but can you tell my audience and myself a little bit more about the NBL Canada? I guess some of the teams, the rules, how the overtime works, and how many regular season games there are, and how the playoff format is, if that's okay, if you can just talk about those.
Absolutely. So the NBLC, it has 8 teams, as aforementioned on the graphic earlier. We have 8 teams, 4 of them in the Central Division. In Ontario, we have the Sudbury 5, Windsor Express, London Lightning, and the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans. And on the other side, you have the Atlantic Division teams, the Moncton Magic from Moncton, New Brunswick, the Island Storm over in Prince Edward Island. You have the St. John's Edge over in Newfoundland, and I'll tell you, it's one of those up-and-coming teams, if I do say so myself. And in Halifax, Nova Scotia, you have the Halifax Hurricanes. So we have 8 of these teams, and usually they do a season between 32 and 40 games, and then the playoff format is as follows. It goes like this. The first round is usually the best of 5, and then you have the Central Division and the Atlantic Division, which goes 7 games, and then you have the finals too. And as far as the rules are concerned, you got a good mixture of FIBA and NBA rules, and it helps the players adjust to it accordingly. We play 12-minute quarters and an overtime 5-minute overtime periods as well. So it's been going strong since 2011. Of course, and it has made some indelible moments, especially for the fans that go to the games or watch the games too. So overall, it's a great experience, and people are often surprised of how the league performs year after year.
I was going to say, with shot clock, is it the same as the NBA, 24-second shot clock?
Absolutely. It is the same as the NBA. However, if it goes off the rim, it will reset to 14 seconds, which I do believe the OCAA, they go by that rule too. So I'm glad they implemented that rule, because I've been thinking for years, why does the shot clock reset to 24 seconds every time the offense gets the rebound again? Usually the defense, they would have all this time to go to the other end of the court and just think about it. So I think for them to cut it almost nearly in half if the offense gets it back, I think it's a good idea. And it's a good idea for all basketball leagues to do that too.
Okay. Thanks about that. Now, the NBL finals, are they a best of 7 or are they a best of 5?
Yes, they are. They are a best of 7, and all series from the division finals up are the best of 7. Only the first round is usually the best of 5.
Okay, and what's the format? 2-2-1-1-1, or is it a 2-3-2 setup?
So for the division finals, it is 2-2-1-1-1. But when we get to the NBLC finals, they go by 2-3-2.
Okay. Just wanted to ask about that. So, okay. And this question you've already answered, but I'll put it up anyways. Possibly they could restart up in November, possibly. Now, before COVID struck, Aaron, did they play a couple of preseason scrimmage games before the regular season would start? Or did they just go right into the regular season?
Well, there's been a handful of teams that have played in the preseason. I know the Windsor Express, they played against the London Lightning for one of their preseason games, and believe it or not, they didn't play at the WFCU Center. In fact, they played at the Healthplex, the St. Clair Healthplex over in Chatham, and we had a good crowd on hand, and it went right down to the final wire. I mean, nothing spells preseason basketball more than seeing the new players on the court fighting for a position, and it goes to show that with this Windsor-London rivalry, It doesn't matter if it's during the preseason, regular season, playoffs, or the finals. It's still going to be intense. So you'd be amazed at how many London fans we see at the WFCU Center, along with the Express fans, and vice versa back at Budweiser Gardens.
Because I think this year, especially if things go well and they can start up, I think it is going to be important, I think, to do at least some scrimmage or a couple of preseason games, because I know a lot of these guys have probably been playing overseas or in other countries, but I just think for the league, it would probably be a good idea to have a couple of games in anyways for everybody, even for the broadcasters as well.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So hopefully we get a preseason going on. I mean, I don't see any reason for them not to do a preseason, but it's like this, for the players that have been in the NBLC or just getting off a season overseas, it'll help them get the rust off per se, get the coaches and the staff to know the players better. And then of course there's training camps for all the players too, to, know one another and see what team they're going to be with, because again, when it comes to the preseason, it gets pretty intense because you're fighting for a spot.
Definitely. Okay. Next question I was going to ask you. This one I got to ask you anyways. What is the hardest aspect of being a play-by-play announcer, and what do you love? What do you really love about it? Like the love, like a part of it, and then what the hardest aspect of it?
Well, the best thing about being a play-by-play announcer is, getting your name and getting your voice out there. And on top of that, just being in that atmosphere in the arena. Usually I go to the arena 2 hours before tip-off time, to see, what players are playing, meet up with the coaches, have an interview with them. I just like being around that atmosphere, because when you broadcast for a team, it's like you're a part of the family, but at the same time, you have to call it like it is. And when you see a couple of fans or two, either they're seeing the game for the first time or they're season ticket holders, it brings a lot of, it brings the bright side for me, because I know there are people watching there and they're about to see a good show. Now, the hardest part about it is you just got to make sure that you don't ramble off everything off in just 5 seconds or 10 seconds or just the whole game. Like for example, like, being a play-by-play announcer, we do research, obviously, before the game in terms of pronunciations, where they came from, where they played at before, how did they do the last game. And we're not going to relay all of that information in just one game. Sometimes it'll take a game or two to do that, because you're not here to talk about mostly the stats or where they came from. You're talking about what goes on the floor. So when it comes to that information, it's a matter of when you want to put it out there, like if it's appropriate to put it out there, or you just, leave it be altogether.
And also, I was going to say, you want to pace yourself too. Like you said, you don't want to do stats overload right away as well. You want to just spread it out, sort of like pace yourself.
Mm-hmm, exactly. And most of the greats have done that, because they haven't put their career based on stats. They put their careers based on what they see. And thank goodness we have two eyes and we see what's in front of us. And it also helps us ad lib more, if anything, because we don't know what's going to happen unless we see it for ourselves.
I have to admit, when I first started doing my podcast a year ago, it was basically all scripted and everything. And I've gradually, in the last couple of months, some good advice from my friend, the Philly sports guy, and a few other people. You need to just relax, be yourself, and ad-lib. Sometimes you have to do that. And it's fine to have a script and questions and all that too, and be prepared, but you also have to be able to ad-lib at times as well.
Yes, because there's going to come a day where you're going to have to ad-lib. Like, say, for example, if there's difficulties in terms of audio or video, or something happens, like say, for example, an injury timeout, we have to ad-lib with it and let the situation play out. Or, for example, if we don't have video on the broadcast for an unspecified amount of time, we would have to go radio and just speak more than usual, like as it was a radio broadcast, where we have to be more descriptive. Or if the video goes out, what do? Well, we still follow the action.
Yep.
Once the audio comes back on, we'll just have to tell people the recap. We apologize for that. And you know what, when it comes to ad-libbing, St. Clair has also helped me with that too. It said, no, you don't know what's going to happen again until it happens. So that's where your opportunity comes in. And maybe it'll give, an employer an opportunity to say, hey, this person is good. He's good at ad-libbing. He's good at telling it like it is. That's why we would like to have him or her with us.
Well, and also I've had a couple of guests. Stuff have come up at the last second. They've canceled out on me, and I ended up doing my shows, and I still ended up talking for 45 minutes to an hour. So that's something I'm learning too, that you always have to be prepared for the unexpected and be able to ad lib as well. And things sometimes happen with guests not being able to come on your podcast or technical difficulties as well.
Mm-hmm. And eventually, when you do that more and more, it will be a walk in the park. I mean, there are some viewers out there that would ask questions of you, and I'm sure you would answer them, and it would help to fill in the time too, or just tell an anecdote.
And one thing, like I said, right now, and maybe in the future, I might get a co-host, but I think like right now, I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing for now. And then maybe in the future, I'll look at maybe getting a co-host as well. But like I said, any advice I can get from all my guests, I try to take their advice and use it in my podcast. So I just try to make the podcast, try to get it better, improve it every show.
Absolutely. That time will come too, where you either get a co-host, but at the moment you feel very comfortable with what you're doing with the podcast right now. And again, if it isn't broke, then you don't fix it. This is a good platform.
Yeah, and I know there's a million podcasters out there. I just worry about myself and just trying to improve and making my podcast unique. And recently, I just got all my podcasts on Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all that. So now people, if they don't want to watch me live, they can listen to my audio after, because as soon as I'm done, I just download my audio and then it goes on to these other 7 platforms. So I'm on pretty well 10 or 12, I think maybe 12 platforms now for social media with my podcast.
Well, that's pretty good. And, it's good that you only pay attention to yourself. I was just telling a friend of mine the other night, and I basically said, don't worry about what everybody else is doing out there. It's like, you improve yourself, you improve your craft, and, everything else will come together. And, the fact that you have your podcasts on all of these major platforms, there's nowhere else to go but up.
And like I said, and I have learned how to produce my own shows. I've learned how to get guests on, and I just tell these guys that do come on what I'm doing and what I'm trying to do, and I don't get pushy. I just let people get back to me, and that's how I do it. And then sometimes guests, they say they can come on, and then something happens. I just leave it and then let them get back to me. So it's how you deal with people too.
It's patience at the end of the day.
Absolutely, patience and stuff like that. So, okay, are you still good for time for a little bit longer?
Oh, I could do another hour. I'll do whatever.
Okay.
I'll tell you this. I enjoy talking, and this is a good way for me, to get back into something like this too. So you're helping me out more than anything.
Thank you. Yeah, because my guest last night, Joe Verlano from the Red Wings, who was nice enough to come on, he said about a half an hour. So I'm also learning too, when a guest can only commit to like 15 minutes or a half an hour, to shorten my show or the questions. So I prioritize, like if I have a guest like can only come on for 20 minutes, I just kind of prioritize the questions that I want to get in there. So I'm learning that too.
And I'll ask any questions, and I'll be more than happy to answer them as best as I can.
Okay, my next one I was going to ask you, Aaron, your favorite NBL game so far you witnessed and have called for the Windsor Express since doing their live streaming play-by-play, like a regular season and a playoff game.
Well, as far as regular season is concerned, I have to go back to the 2017-2018 season, and they were playing against the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans. It was a Sunday afternoon battle, and it was going back and forth. And that was where I was able to get my first NBL Canada buzzer beating call right there. So KW, they just got a bucket from the top of the key with about, I would say, 7-8 seconds to go. So, of course, the Express have to advance the ball, half court, and full court pressure was applied by KW. And then the ball was in the hands of Shaquille Keith, who passed the timeline, went to the corner three, and just let it fly. And it went in at the buzzer. And to this day, I'm still amazed that he was able to get that shot off because it was off balance. Like the momentum was going with him. And of course, you have to look up really quick to see how many seconds you have left. So that was one of my favorite regular season games. Now, as far as the playoffs are concerned, for the Windsor Express, I would have to go back to the 2016-2017 season. And it was a little bit of an interesting conflict, to say the least, because the Express had to play all their games over in Lakeshore at the Atlas Tube Center because the WFCU Center was hosting the Memorial Cup. So the fact that we had to play it in a different arena, obviously different atmosphere, and we have to adjust to our surroundings, and everybody was able to do that. So we had a capacity crowd for most of those playoff games. We had a series against the KW Titans. We won 2 games at home, and then we swept the series over at the old auditorium. And then we had the Lightning come into town, and unfortunately they swept the Express into that series en route to their championship. But nonetheless, to have that experience, and not at the WFCU Center, their regular home, it was very interesting because we have all these players, playing for the fans, and the fans, they responded accordingly. They were there right from the get-go up into the final buzzer. So I can't put a specific game onto the playoffs, but it was just that run that made me realize, to improvise, to broadcast, and to be around different surroundings outside of Windsor. Man, it's a heck of a ride, even though I should have been used to it when I was doing the Lightning games at the same time too.
I was gonna say, the NBL Championship Trophy, is it a name for it, or they just call it the NBL Championship?
Well, it is the NBL Canada Championship Trophy, and obviously that's emblematic of anybody who wins the championship, but it's a pretty wonderful trophy along with the MVP awards. I remember holding it up in 2017 where the Lightning were about to clinch the championship during the pregame, and I was amazed because I never thought at that time I would be close to the championship trophy, let alone broadcast the championship game. But those moments happen, and when you're in the media business, you'd be surprised at how many events and what you do at that time. So it's amazing.
Okay. Next question I'm going to ask you. I don't know if you'll be able to answer it right now, but who do you think could be some of the top teams in the NBL when it will happen, when the league does resume at some point, hopefully by the end of this year or even January? If you could just maybe run off 2 or 3 teams that you think could be top contenders for the championship.
Well, first off, I wouldn't count out the Windsor Express because I know the season before COVID struck, they had some fine players with them, like an NBLC veteran like Ryan Anderson, one of the finest in not only the league, but entirely in Canada. It's like one of the fastest sharpshooters that you will ever meet. I wouldn't count the Windsor Express out. I wouldn't count the London Lightning out because they always have caliber talent. The Sudbury Five, now they are very destructive on the court, but they are top contenders, and they've been the top contenders since they came in to the league a few years ago. And they are coached by a former Windsor Express player in Logan Stutz. He knows a thing or two about the NBLC, won the MVP award in his first year, mind you. And his play style is one of my favorites that I have seen out of any basketball player that I have seen, whether in college, university, or Canadian basketball in general. But over on the Atlantic Division, I would say the Halifax Hurricanes have a good shot at the NBLC title when it continues, because again, they have a well-mannered coach that has been around in the league for a long time as assistant coach, and then he was able to get promoted as a head coach for the Halifax Hurricanes. They have a very, very nice guard in the name of Clifford Clinkscales, and I think you may remember a certain last name by the name of Mason. Now, when you hear the word Mason, who do you think of right away? Anthony Mason of the New York Knicks?
Mm-hmm.
His son plays for the Halifax Hurricanes too, and he is just like his father, just a top-notch player, and that is one of the dynamic 1-2 punches of the Atlantic Division. So if I had to pay attention to certain teams when the league continues, Halifax and the Atlantic Division, the Express, the Lightning, and the Sudbury Five over in the Central Division too, because I'll tell you, if they all make the playoffs, they're going to go to the limit, no matter who they go up against.
I was going to ask you, overall, how's Sudbury doing in this league, like financially? Like maybe not financially, but do you think they will succeed in that market? Because when you think of Sudbury, you think of the Sudbury Wolves, but that franchise in the OHL has kind of struggled for many years, and I'm not sure if it's because of the market. Like a lot of the OHL guys don't want to go there. But do you think Sudbury 5 will be a strong franchise for the NBL and for the future?
Oh, 100%. Because I remember in their first season, 2018, 2019, they surprised everybody. A full house over at the Sudbury Arena. And on top of that, you got the good talent and so on and so forth. So it's safe to say that the Sudbury community has embraced basketball to a T. They did that the year afterwards, and it's been going fine so far. So I don't have a doubt in the Sudbury Five at all, especially with the way they play on the court, the way they get active with the community off the court. It's like they're going to be here for a long time.
Okay, well, that's good. Now, another question I was going to ask you, the league right now has 8 teams. Are they going to maybe possibly look at expansion in the future and get it to 10 teams, like 5 on the Maritimes and 5 in this area?
I firmly believe that they will look forward to expanding in the years to come, because with everything going on, with all the talent, there's going to be one day where certain teams going to be like, there's too much firepower right there, we're going to have to let somebody go. And then you look at an expansion team and be like, well, they might go there, and that could be that team's saving grace. So I say in the future, the NBLC will be welcoming new cities with open arms, and it's going to be fun to see.
Is there any markets right now you could see in Ontario that would be a good fit possibly for the NBL expansion in the future?
Well, it's interesting that you bring up that point, because all I could see is, and I'm thinking of OHL teams, because with their arenas, you could imagine a basketball team being played there too. For example, I would be very interested to see a team where the Peterborough Petes play, like say, for example, if you want to go a little farther, where the Battalion play, they're in North Bay, correct?
North Bay, yeah.
I was going to say Brampton for a second there.
Yeah,
they used to play there.
Yes.
I know that. So it'd be nice to see a team out beyond there in Peterborough or anywhere else in Ontario. I mean, but that's just the hunch, right?
Would you even consider the Toronto market, like even a place like Milton or Oakville, possibly?
Well, that'd be nice, because back then, a few years ago, we had a team in the Orangeville, Brampton area, and they did pretty well there too. So I don't see them saying no to the Toronto area, because with the way basketball has surged in that area in the last few years, thanks to the Raptors and how well the national basketball team has been doing, there's no way for them to say no to that area.
Okay. Next question I was going to ask you, I guess, besides you've done play-by-play, you've done a little, can you just tell us a little bit about your PA work you've done as well?
Okay, well, I'll start off with the play-by-play. Thanks to We Digital Productions, I was able to do play-by-play for high school football for one game, because I said one day, I don't want to only call basketball. As much as it's my first love, I know when you get into sports broadcasting, you got to be ready to broadcast any sport, whether if it's just picking up the stats or just going on camera. So I've done football. I've done Pee Wee hockey when they had the Pee Wee hockey tournament over in Essex a few years ago. And I'll be honest with you, my first game, I could have just put my head into the hole, but for the rest of the week, I felt like I got better with it, and I would love more than anything to call hockey again. And at the same time, in the same token, I would love to call baseball, because I know in the last year, since we're under quarantine and under lockdown, I was looking at other sports, because there's going to be that opportunity one day. Basketball may take a little longer, but with baseball, it's like you've got the greats. You got Vince Scully. You got Kurt Gowdy. All these great people that are able to make a story out of the game. And I would love for that opportunity to do that. Now, for public address work, believe it or not, it was one of my first jobs ever. I was the PA announcer for the St. Clair Saints men's and women's basketball team from 2014 to 2017. Again, the same year where I joined We Digital Production. So funny enough, I went from one mic to another mic. That's one thing to consider. I'm also the PA announcer for the Essex Ravens. They play in the OPFL. They are the the senior varsity team are the defending champions from 2019. And I'm happy to be a part of that. I'm the public address announcer for the Windsor Lancers soccer and volleyball teams. And on occasion, I would do PA announcing for hockey or any other sports they need a backup for. So that's just a highlight of my public address and play-by-play work.
Because some of the guys I've been talking to, John Murphy, the Bills guy, play-by-play guy, same with Bob Sochi, they've all done baseball. They've done a little hockey. They've done Bob Sochi did basketball for Navy before he got the Patriots job. So what you're just saying there too is it's good to do other sports, just not focusing on one. The more you can do, the more you add to your skill sets.
It goes back to multitasking. You have to multitask to make it big.
Yeah, everybody that's come on my podcast has said the same thing as well. So, okay, thanks for answering that question. I just got a couple more for you, and that's it. I was going to do this one for you. Besides sports, do you have any other hobbies or music you enjoy? And before you do a game, do you happen to listen to a little music to get you into? Some people do. I do before my podcast, listen to satellite radio just to kind of chill and relax. I was just going to ask you, have any like music or anything that kind of gets you calm or relaxed before a broadcast?
Well, when it's game day, I have a routine that I go by. I wake up, I double check my information, and off I go to the arena. And funny enough, the only music that I'll be able to listen to is the music into the arena. It's like, it's not a matter of me getting into the moment or getting psyched up for the game. It's just, I'm more concerned about, the broadcasting crew to make sure that, they're okay. The cameras is all right and whatnot. But when I go into the arena, I make sure I get my last minute questions in with the coaches and the team and, check in with my broadcasting partner too, to see what we're going to discuss in the pregame show, and the rest of it will play itself. For hobbies, as far as everything else is concerned, I'm a suit guy and I love, collecting suits and buying suits.
I didn't know that. I did not know that about you. I learned something every time I do a podcast.
It's trust me, it's amazing. I got over, and I'm not trying to gloat or anything, but I have like over 30 suits. I'm a tile away from number 250. Yeah, I said to myself when I started broadcasting for the Windsor Express, I want to do something that'll make me stand out. So I bought all these colorful suits. I got this one, though. Friend of mine suggested that I wear this. It's one of their favorites. So I got this suit. I got a Pac-Man suit, and I'm not afraid to admit that.
I'm a Pac-Man fan. I grew up in the late 70s and 80s playing Pac-Man and Mrs. Pac-Man all the time.
You see, it's Pac-Man fever.
Yeah, they had a song come out too in 1982.
That's perfect.
Pac-Man fever.
Exactly. Interesting point too. I got into Pac-Man and Donkey Kong during the Spurs' second championship run, because it's like during the summer, there's no basketball, so I'll just play it on the computer. And I've been a Pac-Man and Donkey Kong fan ever since. On top of that, you also saw the suit that I wore on my video. That's one of my favorite suits, bar none. I got that. I got a light blue suit. I was able to get a replica of the Hockey Night in Canada blazers they used to wear back in the 80s. It was
the baby blue. The baby blue.
The baby blue with the Hockey Night in Canada logo on it.
I remember. Yeah, I was around for that. So, wow. I was going to say, I don't even own a suit right now. I have to admit, I want to get into radio, but eventually I probably should get a suit or two. So if I ever do look at getting a suit, I'll contact you because you're the suit guy.
Hey, you got it. I got plenty of suits I could think of. I got one that actually looks like it's a confetti suit, but to me, I call it the gumball machine suit because there's like all them colors and circles and everything. I got that. But yeah, when I tell people, it's like, look, I love suits and I got all these ties, like they're surprised. And I'm like, well, it goes with the business. And I
Yeah,
make it,
yeah.
I make it a mission not to wear the same suit or the same combination in the same season. And luckily I've been successful in that in the last 6 years. So I like collecting suits. I like collecting old video games. I want to show you this since I'm in my office. This is an old Donkey Kong tabletop game from the 80s.
Yeah, that must have been from 82 because they had little Pac-Man games like that too. That was huge back then.
That's
huge.
Right. I'm still trying to find the Frogger one, all of them, Galaxian, you name
Yeah.
it. And believe this, I got this off of eBay back in 2004. Well, actually, my dad got it for me. Thanks a lot to him. Funny enough, I was still living in San Antonio. And guess where this model came from? Take a guess.
San Antonio.
No, Windsor.
Windsor.
Where I am now.
Ironic. Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
a year later, I just moved. I would move here, but
yeah.
I got that. And you talk about Pac-Man. Hold on, I'm not done with this yet. I'm not kidding. I'm an avid collector of the mini games.
Nice.
And also on top of that, I collect game show memorabilia. I got a game show board game collection that's like around 54, 55 right now. We're talking about not just Wheel of Fortune or Jeopardy or The Price is Right. We're talking about the classics, Concentration, Price is Right, Scrabble, you name it.
Wow. Hey, speaking of a hobby, do you have a favorite music you listen to? Classic rock, or do you have a favorite music and band?
Anything classic, but I prefer classic R&B and rap and hip hop. It's like any of the classics, I'll take it, because when it comes to modern day music, I got some sort of issue right there. I don't care what anyone says. The oldies are great. Yeah,
I'm a 70s and 80s guy, even Motown music. I wasn't even born in the 60s, but you listen to Motown music, it brings you up, like it's upbeat music. So
it's very rich. Honestly, the music is rich.
Yes. And I have cousins in Michigan, so I always like going to Michigan and listening to Motown music and Kid Rock and Eminem and Bob Seger. Bob Seger is one of my favorites. As soon as I hear Bob Seger, I think of my times going over to Michigan and stuff like that.
That's great. I mean, you got good music taste. And before we wrap up that question, I want to give a shout out to a great friend of mine who suggested that I wear this suit, because I usually ask people, like, what suit should I wear for the podcast and whatnot. And lo and behold, cotton candy suit over here won it all.
Good choice. No, one day when I do need to get a suit, I will definitely contact you about where I should get a suit and all that stuff. Because like I said, I'm kind of a hoodies and jeans type guy. But if I'm lucky enough to make it in this profession, I will have to have a suit.
I'll tell you this: turtlenecks don't hurt at all. You should also try turtlenecks, like anything. Just trust me. It takes once you get a combination going. And I'll tell you this. I'll tell you an interesting story. In my first year of broadcasting, like, I didn't have much of these suits. Like, I would say like around 50 ties or whatnot. I remember I went to Goodwill to get a couple of suits too. And, never be afraid to, look up Goodwill and see if the suits fit you. I had a beige double-breasted blazer. And, one of the buttons fell off, and I knew it was a little bit too stretched from wearing it most of the time. And I had an 80s jacket, which was like, it was green felt, to say the least.
Yeah.
But I knew it would be the last time I wear it, because the shoulder pads were like, boom, boom, boom. So I decided after that season, and more importantly, a few years later, it's like, get some of the new suits, because when you do the retro suits, and I've done it before, when you have wide lapels on there, people will think that you came from a time machine. No, I actually wore a wide lapel suit on the air once. It was checkered, it was beige and maroon. Glad to say that I got rid of it, because as time goes on, you have to adjust accordingly. But nonetheless, swear to the wise.
Okay. Hey, last question for you. This is my last one I got for you, buddy. Predictions for this year's Stanley Cup and NBA Finals, and your favorite all-time Spurs team and Spurs player.
Well, the prediction for the Stanley Cup, that's funny because I haven't watched as much hockey that I used to in years past, but thanks to a friend of mine, and I'll give him a shout out right now. Thanks to Cam, I've heard a lot of good stuff about the Toronto Maple Leafs, but let's see if they'll pass the first round against the Montreal Canadiens, because if they're able to do something like get out of the first round, then I could see them going very far. As far as the NBA Finals is concerned, I really hope somebody from the West pulls through, whether if it's Utah or the Lakers, because I know the Lakers, they dropped a couple of places right now. And usually I'm not a Lakers fan, considering, I go for the Spurs. But if LeBron and them are able to get things together, they could be a team. They could be a Cinderella team based on where they sit. My favorite all-time Spurs team, 2003. My first full year into basketball. You had the great player as in Tim Duncan, who's going to be inducted in the Basketball Hall of Fame tomorrow night. I'll get to him later on. You have young players like Speedy Claxton, Steven Jackson, Malik Rose, who was good off the bench. And then you have these veterans, Danny Ferry, Kevin Willis, Steve Kerr. That's right, that same Steve Kerr. And, of course, one of my favorite players, David Robinson, on the verge of retiring. So the fact that they won that championship through great teamwork. They got through tough teams like Phoenix, stopped LA from a four-peat, stopped Dallas from preventing any more damage, and just knocking down Jason Kidd in the Nets. It just culminated together as one of the finest teams, but people don't even consider them as one of the finest teams. But they had leadership, they had teamwork. Greg Popovich was working his magic on the bench, and David Robinson was able to retire a champion on June 15th, 2003.
And that team won 5 championships. And it just seems like everyone wants to talk about the Lakers, the Bulls, the Celtics, but the Spurs were a dynasty too.
Absolutely. I mean,
and made the playoffs how many years in a row? 23 years in a row?
Yeah, 22 straight before 22. They lost that chance last year. But no, it's like they had rough beginnings in the 70s, starting in the ABA.
Yeah.
And then the ABA, of course, most people know, merged with the NBA. They were hot at the time with George Gervin and James Silas, and then they had that rough patch in the 80s, and then you insert David Robinson, Sean Elliott, and then Tim Duncan in the late 90s, and, that started a dynasty. Everybody was able to leave a mark in that dynamic team, and now you got new players like DeJounte Murray and DeMar DeRozan still trying to carry that torch from the Spurs past.
Yeah. Okay. Hey, can I ask you a favor? One of my friends just sent me a question. I just saw it now. I was wondering if I could just put it on here. My friend Karen from London, who's a Lightning fan, she just wanted to ask you a question. She's a huge Blue Jays fan too. Do you think there's a bigger or better rivalry in the NBL other than the Lightning and Express? I personally think that's the biggest rivalry right now in that league.
Oh, you got it. Anytime when you're able to travel 2 hours down the 401 there and back to see the Lightning and Express play, you're not going to be disappointed. It's one of the best rivalries in the NBL. There are many fans that have said that. There are many other players that have said that too. We've had a number of players that played on both sides of the rivalry with the Express and the Lightning. And I'll tell you, there are a few times where some games will go in overtime or will just come right down to the wire. Especially there was one game a few years ago at Budweiser Gardens. It was a barn burner, to say the least. But the Lightning was able to win that, I think, 149-146. I thought it was one of the finest games I've seen in NBLC history at the time. So when it comes to the Lightning and the Express, all I have to tell everybody, including Karen, you better hang on to your seats. You better buy those tickets, and you better watch the game, because the talent is only going to make this rivalry much more stronger, much more hotter, and much more better in the years to come.
Okay. Hey, before I let you go, Aaron, you mentioned before when we talked about something to do with the Windsor Arena. You wanted to mention something about the old barn?
That's right. Well, I'll tell you this. Everybody knows that the old barn has been around since 1924, the original home of the Detroit Red Wings when they were the Cougars. And for 30-plus years, who else would go to the Windsor Arena for a Spitfire game? A lot of people have, whether if you're a Spits fan or a fan of the opposition. Like, for example, I'm sure you have witnessed it with the Storm and the Spitfires, or any Knights fan or any other team in the OHL. However, it is uncertain as to what the future will be for at the Madhouse at McDougal. So there is a petition out there in social media called Save the Barn. And I'll tell you, the signatures that they have amassed so far is pretty great. It goes to show that everybody either in Windsor or outside Windsor knows what the old barn is all about. It's been home to great concerts, great events, great spit games, great spit players, like, for example, Taylor Hall, Mickey Reynolds, may he rest in peace. I think Greg Nemus along the way, and so on and so forth. And the city of Windsor and the Windsorites, they want to do something about the Windsor Arena, and hopefully we don't see it come, with a date with the wrecking ball. So it's just a petition out there. If you're able to sign it, it'll just let everybody know it's like, hey, this is a local institution, a great fixture for more than 90 years. And hopefully down the road, something can be done with it. So everybody is able to go back into the old barn, whether to watch certain events or whether to go skating on that famous, let me try to put it this way, as Bill Kelso would say, the solidified surfaces over at the old barn. So Save the Barn project is up and running. So if everybody could look at that over on its pages on social media, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and give a signature out there, I think we'll see the old barn, get back into use. Because the last time it has been in the use, Chris, was when the Lancers hockey team played there in 2013, and it has remained dormant ever since. We're trying to open doors in the old barn again, so hopefully people are able to recognize that.
Yeah, because I know when the Storm moved to the Sleeman Center, they tore down the old Memorial Gardens left, right, and center, and it's like there's not too many old barns and old arenas left in Ontario.
Unless if you count the Kitchener Auditorium and the Sudbury Barn, yeah.
Yeah, the Kitchener one has been renovated so many times. It's still a nice arena, but eventually I think they're going to have to get a new arena in Kitchener at some point because you can only renovate so much.
Yes. Is it me, or does the Kitchener Auditorium look like the inside of the Maple Leaf Gardens in a way?
Yeah, and they've raised the capacity and they've raised the roof of the arena, but it is from the 50s and stuff like that. And eventually, to me, Kitchener, the Rangers can draw probably the same amount as London. I could see Kitchener getting a new arena like Budweiser Gardens, because I think Kitchener's market for the OHL is just as great as London's, and I think they could draw probably 9,500 fans a night if they had a newer arena.
Yes, but of course it depends on location.
Yes,
Definitely.
Definitely.
There's going to be a time where they're going to consider that, but how can you look away from the beauty that is the Kitchener Auditorium or the Sudbury Arena or whatnot? Yes. Those are historic buildings right there.
Yep. Yeah, even the North Bay Arena has been renovated too, and it's one of the older ones too. So definitely. Aaron, I'm going to let you go, but I was just going to say I thank you so much for coming on 30 Minutes Live with CDP podcast, and I would like to hope to have you on again in the future as a guest.
Anytime you want me on, it will be great by me, and thank you again for the opportunity. I hope I've been able to be of a help and, try to encourage the viewers out there to keep on watching basketball, keep on watching sports in general. And, if you're able to watch the NBLC anytime or any day, please do it. It's great talent, and their 10 years of existence wouldn't be possible without the viewers and the great people like all of you out there. And it's an honor and a privilege to be broadcasting their league. And hopefully there's a lot of big things to come in the future, not only for me, but for everybody out there.
I have their website on here. Now, anybody out here that wants to follow you, can you just tell them where they can find you on social media, Aaron?
Absolutely. So you could follow me on Twitter at @ASandersWindsor, and on Instagram, I'm AaronSanders.Frostfather. By the way, that's my nickname. Yes, I know. I know. But yes, that's where everybody could follow me. And usually I just upload, some stuff either about my suits. Once again, shout out. Thank you to my friend who've been able to suggest this get up. And, sometimes I'll put things up about, food, like pie, because we have one of the finest pie establishments here in Windsor. So it's not all about sports or broadcasting. It's like, a look inside of what my life is all about. So don't be a stranger, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Always enjoy the pleasure of your company.
Okay. Well, thank you again, Aaron. And I hope you have a great weekend, and we'll be definitely in touch on social media. Again, thank you for coming on my podcast tonight.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege, honestly. Thank you so much, Chris.
You're welcome, Aaron. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good night.
All right, you too. Thanks, Chris.
You
Bye,
too.
everybody.
Bye. Anyways, guys, I hope you liked my podcast tonight with Aaron Sanders, the longtime voice of the NBL's Windsor Express. I really appreciate Aaron coming on here today, and I really do think Aaron will eventually move up onto a major TV network because I definitely think he has a lot of talent, and he's paid his dues. And like I said, I'm glad everybody could watch this tonight live. So thank you all for watching live on YouTube, Twitter, and Facebook. And for those people who listen to me on audio now with Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Anchor FM, Radiocast, Breaker, etc. Thank you so much as well. I really appreciate this. People can listen to me all across Canada now and the United States with my audio platforms as well. So I'm really very lucky to be able to do this show. And I really enjoyed the guest tonight, Aaron Sanders again. Please check him out. And the NBL website is NBL Canada.ca if you want to check out the National Basketball League of Canada, their website. Again, they have 8 teams and they're hoping to start up this November. So anyways, I'll definitely have Aaron back as a guest in the future. And like I said, before I go, I'm going to just look at some comments. I know I took care of you, Karen, but let's see. 1 second. Mark Richardson. Hi, Chris. Thank you for watching, Mark, as always. I will have your shirt tomorrow. And my friend Beth, hey, Chris, have a good night. Go Pistons. Thank you, Beth. I hope you had a good birthday. And Beth, again, where do you think the Pistons will end up this year? They're not going to make the playoffs, obviously. They're going to be getting a top 4, top 5 draft pick, hopefully number 1. So next year, maybe the Pistons will get back to the playoffs. So they're in a rebuild right now. But anyways, Karen, I did post your question, Aaron. Thank you, Karen, for watching. And I did promote the London Lightning too and yourself. So thank you for watching, Karen. I appreciate that. And my longtime friend, Trevor. Hi, Chris. Thank you, Trevor, for watching. I'll have your t-shirt tomorrow. And let's see. Question, Trevor. It does not look like the Gulf Nighthawks will start up June 28th. I don't know, Trevor. I can't answer that right now. We'll see what happens on June 2nd. If the province is out of the state of emergency lockdown by June 2nd, there's a chance they could. We're going to have to wait and see on that. I can't answer that. But anyways, Mark Richardson, go wish to see an NBL game. Yeah, the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans. That's the closest team to Guelph, and they play all their home games at the Odd. So maybe, Mark, we can check out a game one day to watch the Kitchener-Waterloo Titans play at the Odd. And yes, he was a great guest. Feel free to follow Aaron on social media. He's on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and all that. And check him out on YouTube as well. I definitely think Aaron Sanders will be one day calling NBA games because I really think he's that good. So anyways, guys, I appreciate all the comments tonight. And I appreciate everybody coming on here. And like I said, guys, my next show will be Wednesday night. Wednesday, I believe. 1 second, guys. I need my calendar here. I do have a show next Wednesday. Yeah. The next 30 Minutes Live with CDP podcast will be this Wednesday, May 19th at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 Pacific. I will have Pete Gallivan from WGRZ Channel 2 in Buffalo. He's a daytime anchor, and he's going to come on and talk about his news career in Buffalo for many years. So again, that's this Wednesday, May 19th at 4 o'clock Eastern, 1 on the West Coast. Pete Gallivan from WGRZ Channel 2 in Buffalo will be my special guest, and I'll get to talk to Pete about his career in the news industry in Buffalo, and he loves hockey as well and plays street hockey, not street hockey, but beer league type hockey league and all that too. He loves this hockey as well, and he loves the Sabres and Bills, so I'm looking forward to that. And then next Friday night, Friday, May 21st at 7 o'clock Eastern, 4 on the West Coast, I'm going to have former longtime Major League Baseball pitcher Jerry Royce coming on. He pitched in the major leagues from 1969 to 1990. And he also pitched a no-hitter on June 27th, 1980 against the San Francisco Giants. And he won a World Series with the Dodgers in 1981. And Jerry Royce won over 220 games. So again, next week, Pete Gallivan from Channel 2 Buffalo, Wednesday at 4. And next Friday night at 7 o'clock, Jerry Royce, the longtime former Major League pitcher with the Los Angeles Dodgers, Chicago White Sox, Pittsburgh Pirates, will be my special guest, and we'll talk about his 22-plus year career in the major leagues and pitching for all those teams and stuff like that. So anyways, guys, I'm going to call it a night. I hope everybody has a great night, great weekend, and I hope all you guys can tune into my next podcast is Wednesday at 4 o'clock with Pete Gallivan. Again, thanks for watching 30 Minutes Live with CDP. We'll see you this Wednesday at 4 o'clock. Good night, guys.